Hello and welcome to the Last Show podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to the show. My name is Kortney Williams. I'm the host of the Last Show podcast. I'm a stand-up comedian based out of Tampa, Florida. This is how I gets down. Once a week or whenever I feel like it. Subscribe to the show. Apple Podcasts, Google, TuneIn Radio, Spotify. It's wherever you get your podcast, you can get this podcast. You on YouTube, thank you for tuning in to the YouTube show so you can see my face. Hello. When you ain't got the music license, you know what I mean? You just got to hit the Ron Isley every once in a while. Get this show, man. Please hit the subscribe button, the like button, all that stuff. It gives me the ability to know that you like it. I'm not going to be like one of them liars on YouTube. It's like, when you subscribe, it gives me the potential to get more. I mean, sure, I guess you get some money for subscribing, but you know what I mean? This is YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. I get like 10 cents a view. I mean, I'm getting like TLC checks, you know? I'm going to be bankrupt if you guys watch the show. So I prefer you watch the show, but don't subscribe. Just find it every time, you know what I mean? Like a diamond, you know? My name is Kortney Williams, so check it out, man. What am I wearing? I got to do my wrist checks every time I do the show. I'm wearing my SBGE285. Love this watch. It's Grand Seiko. It's probably one of my favorite watches. Maybe my favorite watch. You know what, though? It's like all whited out. Can you see that on the camera? Can you see that on the camera? No, you can't. Yeah, you know. But it's white dial, snowflake dial. But it's GMT. True GMT, by the way. It better be a true GMT. Almost all the money I pay for this watch. It better, matter of fact, it better change times when I change times. You know what I mean? It better be radio signal. But one thing it does when I do comedy on stage, I remember the first time I used this watch and I couldn't read a thing. It's a terrible watch. It's terrible. You can't read it. You can't read a thing. That's my review for this watch. If you plan on reading this watch with the lights on, you can't see anything. But you know, the spotlights hit the stage and it's just a white on white dial and there's a snowflake on it. So there's nothing really determining. So I was looking at this watch like an old man. And then the host was like, hey, what was going on? That was distracting. I'm like, you're telling me. I just did an hour and I only got paid for a half hour. I am pissed off. But SBGE285, this is actually a titanium watch, as a matter of fact. But I take it off the band or the strap. The bracelet. I'm not a big bracelet guy. I'm a strap guy. And so the strap I bought, this is a strap. And I'll stop I'll stop censoring that as soon as y'all pay me, deluxe. But until then, it's a strap that you will never know about. And it's cool. This watch strap costs more than some of the watches in my collection. So that's where I am in my life. So here it is, the podcast. So there's a couple things I want to talk about. First thing, I want to apologize for the last podcast. I mean, I was tired, Jack. I mean, I was tired. I looked at after I got done recording the last show, I was like, that was a terrible show. But it's one of those shows where, like, you know it's terrible while it's happening, but you just push through it. I've already set the equipment up now. I mean, now we need a product. You know what I mean? Like, it's time to show. You know, now back in the day, I might have deleted that show. It would have never saw the light of day. But now, I don't care. I don't care. I mean, you think YouTube is going to stop because of the 10 cents? You don't want to put out a bad product. I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm a human. Huh? I'm smart. Like never said, I'm dumb. I deserve respect. You know what I mean? So I want to apologize for that show. And you know what's funny, man? I don't have the comeback like I used to. So I recorded that like Sunday afternoon or something like that. And I was at Side Splitters Comedy Club on Saturday night. Thank you guys for coming to the show. And did two shows. The second show started at 9:30. So by the time I got home, it was like 12 o'clock, at 8, the whole thing. Next day, I'm like, oh, I'm going to record the podcast. And dog tired, boss. Dog tired. And I was like, I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to, like, when I started comedy, like, I used to be able to just go, bounce up, get it going. You know what I mean? I can't do it no more. I need 10 hours of sleep after every show. You know what I mean? That's why I'm not working. I am preparing for my show in 2 weeks. This is prep times. Awful. I'm the most working, non-working comedian you'll ever meet. You know what I mean? I'm paycheck to paycheck, even though I'm making more than a normal paycheck. So I apologize for that show. Now, before we get really into the podcast, let me get this up. This weekend coming up, I will be in Sacramento. Now, you got to understand, like, this is one of my favorite clubs. I'm not even in Light anymore. It's one of my favorite clubs. I'll be in Sacramento at Laughs Unlimited. Man, please come check out the show. Did that look weird when I did that? Laughs Unlimited. But I'll be at Laughs Unlimited this weekend. Let me scoot over a little bit. So I'll be at Laughs Unlimited. All the ticket detail information is over here. This is all the detailed information. 4 shows, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday. Friday, Saturday. This weekend, the 4th and the 5th October, I'll be in Sacramento. Please come out, get your tickets in advance. I have I think I have the ability to do like comps. So like, you guys that come to the show and been supporting me and you want to get comps tickets to the show, I'm not giving you any. That's right. I have the ability to get you in free, but I won't. You ain't my wife. You don't pay no bills in my house. Jenny want full freight. So I'll be at the comedy club. That is a terrible, but I'll be at the comedy club. Laughs Unlimited, man. So come check me out this weekend. And that's how we going to get down on that. All right, so let's get back to the main shot. So check this out. One thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about hurricanes. It occurred to me because I live in Florida. And by the way, I'm fine. I live in Tampa, as a matter of fact. And I'm fine. Some people had checked into me. I'm just like, I'm fine, baby. What happened? And never lost power. And I live like in the city. So what you guys see that don't live in Tampa, and you see, the damage, like all the live shots that you saw, like, downtown, like that's like half a block from my house. Some of those live shots, like when I go jogging, I see these places all the time. And I don't know, I guess I'm living in like a bubble or something like that, because even I was talking to my wife and the hurricane happened, we never lost power. It flickered a bunch of times. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. Because like I live in like a gentrified neighborhood, but it's like, it's about 75% there. You know what I mean? We're still working, almost there. You know what I mean? It's like the Tiana. I live like Tampa Heights, Tiana. That's where I live. So when we first moved in, when there was more black people, power used to go out all the time. So, be honest, dog. As soon as more money started coming to the neighborhood, power was great. Internet was great. Everything was fantastic. But when we first moved in the house, power used to go off it was like rolling blackouts, dog. It was like the summer of Sam. That's what it was. And so whenever the power starts flickering, it's a storm. Haven't had it go out in like a long time, for a prolonged period. If it goes out now, it's like a transformer or something like that. So when the power flickered, I'm like, oh my God, it's about to go out. So I started unloading ice out of the machine. And my wife is like, what are you going to do without ice? I'm going to keep something cold. You know what I mean? I got to do something. You know what I mean? It's just like, what are you going to keep cold, dog? I was like, I don't know. We ain't got nothing cold in this house. We are dead. So, but the power never went out. It just flickered. And I was like, oh, cool. The next morning I woke up to go jogging, and I mean, half a block from my house. As soon as you turn the corner, I mean, a huge oak tree just split in half, ripped down all the power lines, ripped them down. So maybe at that point it flickered and we got on the back. I don't know. And I was like, oh my gosh. Meanwhile, 3 weeks ago, we had trees cut down around our house because 2 years ago, when the hurricane kind of brushed by, one of the branches snapped and we had to fix the fence and all these things that I thought was like, oh man, this is an inconvenience, that now it wrecked my avocado tree, which just now recovered. Which, by the way, got hit again on the last hurricane, but I'm not here to complain. You know what I mean? I'm not here to complain. So I said that to say, when I got back home, I'm like, oh my gosh, this tree was split in half. I'm like, it's crazy. People had damage. Then we have friends of ours that had to gut the bottom of their house. She said they had to gut the floors of the house because the flooding came in. I was like, where? It was like Tampa. I was like, huh? We didn't have to gut the house. And then today I'm driving down Bayshore, which is another place, is right by the hospital. So down, and I see seawalls in front of people's houses, destroyed. Seawalls. I mean, I'm not talking about a fence. I'm not talking about an avocado. No, I'm talking about concrete cinder block walls destroyed. And I'm like, wow, it's like a hurricane hit this place. It's people doing bad out here, man. I went to Lowe's today. That was the big trip today. I'm prepping my fall garden beds. You guys stay tuned for my fall garden beds. But prepping the garden beds, I go to Lowe's and they have buckets, and people are getting these buckets. The buckets was free. I'm always down for something free. And I say, hey, what do I need to do to get the free bucket? What is in the bucket? Why don't you show me what's inside of the bucket or whatever? They was like, oh, these are cleaning supplies for people affected by the hurricane. I was like, word? People affected by the hurricane? Then I came back a block from my house, right in front of the neighborhood, what do they call it? Garden community, you know? Trees split in half, can't drive down the road. And I'm like, wow, I see the pictures from North Carolina, and I'm like, wow, hurricane is a real thing. Once again, still in my bubble because I grew up with the idea of a hurricane, even though I've never been hit by a hurricane, but the idea of what to do if I know what to do. You know what I mean? So today, this morning, fast forward, I'm watching Fox and Friends. Because when I'm that's why I need to work. You know what I mean? Because when I don't work, I sit at home trying to find things that'll make me angry. And Fox and Friends does it. You know, funny enough. So I'm watching Fox and Friends, you know? And the cat on Fox and Friends is like, it's the government's fault or whatever. You know what I mean? It's always the political slant. But one of the things that he said that I thought was completely wild, he said, you know, it's like, you know, the government wasn't prepared. And then one guy was like, the people weren't prepared. The governor wasn't prepared. It's like they didn't know what was going to happen. And let me tell you something. You guys don't even know anything about it. There's no preparation for a hurricane. There is no prep. The prep is get the hell out. That is the prep. But if you never had it happen, or you never had the threat of what may happen, and you never seen of what may happen, you might think, oh, we a storm, whatever, maybe a flood, whatever. Yo, people in North Carolina was getting washed out from work. From work, dog. Like, these people clocked in for a shift, a normal day. No one's thinking, oh, it's going to flood, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. No one can prepare for a hurricane. There is no prep. Put sandbags in front of your house. You like, so what, the sand going to like save your house? That's not the way it works. If sand can save your house, there would be no beach, you know, because the sand would stop the water. It's not the way it works, dog. To quote the great philosopher Margie Bradley, water put out fire. Water is a powerful thing. Ain't nobody prepping for no hurricane. And I guess I grew up with this mentality that you can't really prep. But when people from the outside see middle America, now it's a tragedy. Now it's so sad to see. Everyone chimes in with these opinions like the people that are affected somehow did something wrong. The government saw that somehow did something wrong. They somehow did something wrong. Like we haven't seen this before. Whether it's Hurricane Matthew, Harvey, Ian, Hurricane Katrina. And Hurricane Katrina was a whole different situation. I mean, the hurricane was not actually the issue in Hurricane Katrina. But you don't live around hurricanes, you may not know that. That had nothing to do with it. The Asheville, basically Western North Carolina, that's because of a hurricane. That's because of dramatic amount of water, very, very, very fast in a short period of time. Now you start getting high tides and in all these things that I grew up with the philosophy and the idea that this could happen and what would happen if this would happen and how to prepare, which is get the hell out. That is preparation. But what happens when you can't afford to get out? What happens when you're stuck? Do you just sit on Fox and Friends in New York City like, oh my gosh, the government ain't doing it. Look, man, we don't own this world. Newsflash, the world will be fine without the people. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but there's plenty of planets circling around here with no people, and they seem to be doing just fine. The GDP of Saturn, way up. No recession at Uranus. You know what I mean? No recession. You know what I mean? You look at Mercury, it looks great out there, dog. They're doing fine without you. This planet is borrowed. You don't own it. So if nature decides it's time to, you know, rearrange the state, it's time to rearrange the state. What you want to do is get the hell out the way. That's the prep. So I'm guilty in the sense of living in my bubble. I'm like, yo, we good, baby. You know what I mean? We dodged the bullet. But going through the day, especially seeing in North Carolina, it's sobering, man. My heart breaks for those people because you don't quite understand. And I don't understand because I've never been through that level of that. Like That is generational changing. Generational changing. I work with people all the time that now live in Houston, and then they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" "Oh, from New Orleans. We left during a hurricane. Never went back. Never went back." I think Hurricane Katrina, that was like '06 or something like that. Um, '04 or something like that. It's been almost 20 years. They left their home, hurricane, never went back, never saw it again. That's generational changing, dude. Generational changing. So then to go in my backyard and be like, man, my fence is broken and the tree is down. You live in your bubble. And while I know what it does, those people on the outside are like, oh, why didn't you just leave? It's just not that easy to just leave. It's just a factor of life. And for some reason, I'm like, let's talk hurricanes because it seems like people don't quite understand that there's no defense for a hurricane. You're a sitting duck. That's what you are. You put your hands together and you pray it's not that bad. You pray at the end you have a house. Maybe, FEMA. Maybe your insurance don't cancel. Because by the way, if Tampa ever gets hit or if Miami ever gets hit by a hurricane, God forbid, it's an insurance nightmare. It's over. Like, that's it. There are people down in Naples, they're never going back, dog. People in the Panhandle, they're never going, it's over. Done. I don't know if it may be wildfires in certain parts on the West Coast. I don't think there's any equivalent to what Mother Nature can do when it comes to a hurricane. It can wipe you out. Wipe you out. And there's no prep. And there's no amount of government spending. There's no amount of plywood. There's no amount of sandbags that's going to stop nature from doing what it do. Now, afterwards, hopefully you get lucky enough that you're able to rebuild. It takes forever. To rebuild Miami, decades, man. So have some grace. I thought we'd talk hurricanes on the podcast. How was that for a show? I would tell you what time it is, but I can't see because the light is too bright. Let's wrap the show. Thank you, you, for tuning into the Last Show podcast. How was that for energy, by the way? I'm feeling great, feeling good. How are you? I just want you to know how I feel. Subscribe, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google, tune in. Hey, YouTube, please come on back, man. Like the show. Don't subscribe, just like it, all right? Free will. I'm not forcing you to do anything. No Diddy. Take it easy. Peace.